Now, very briefly speaking, that there have been some stages in the way the understanding of Jesus and based on the theology has developed. Initially, of course, Jesus was recognized as a teacher, as a rabbi, and he was his teaching was primarily concentrated on the question of the kingdom of God, a discipleship to the kingdom of God, the question of self-denial and attitude to wealth and power, etc. So there was a very strong teacher calling for discipleship to the kingdom of God. That is one phase that we read in the synoptic gospel narratives, with all the ambiguities that goes with the synoptic narratives, but we still have a picture of him as a teacher. Then we have a quick second phase, when Christianity becomes embedded into Judaism. And we see that primarily in the epistles, the Gospels, and St. Paul and letters, and the others, and the whole theology that is developed around it. And when I teach Christology, one of the things I point out is that how Jesus of history, or at least Jesus the teacher, completely vanishes in the way that St. Paul teaches about Jesus. He should have known something about Jesus and his history, but it completely vanishes. And now we have Jesus interpreted entirely in terms of Judaism as a Messiah, and then the images of atonement, reconciliation, all the images that we know about, but entirely based on the Hebrew understanding or Jewish understanding, because the church was Jewish and the Jewish images and theology was used to interpret Christ. Then Christianity moves into the Greco-Roman world. It becomes a Gentile religion. And complete change again. Christology changes, and there is Greek philosophy and Greek culture thoroughly influences the way Christianity, Christian theology and Christology develops. So at least broadly speaking, depending on where the Christian faith was moving, there were three different phases in it. First as a teacher, then as a Messiah, etc. in the Jewish tradition, then as a Son of God, and all the Chalcedonian Christology that we have. In the 17th century, Christianity moves into Asia and Africa mainly. What happened? One would have expected that what happened when Christianity moved into the Greco-Roman world would happen when it moved into Asia. Because Asia had beautiful religious traditions and philosophical traditions. There was Hinduism, there was Buddhism, there is Confucianism, Taoism, with very well developed philosophical traditions, cultural understandings, etc. And one would have hoped that Christianity would have been inculturated in the Hindu-Buddhist environment and in the philosophical tradition, and there would have been a Christology and a Christian faith that would have developed in this part of the world. What happened? Nothing happened. It depends on, I think now Hyodong is going to speak about it. One of the reasons, of course, is that it went there in the context of a Western colonial rule. And the sense of colonial superiority of their religion and of their culture. And therefore, other religious traditions were seen as pagan, heathen, superstition, and they were never taken into consideration. And therefore, Christianity never, the Christian faith never really took the impact that it should have had when it moved into these religious traditions. Therefore, it was impoverished. The enormous wealth, the development that took place in the Greco-Roman world did not happen when it went into even richer environment of Hinduism, Buddhism, and Confucianism and Taoism. And that is, and the problem is that even today in the Asian churches, the theology that we have is the Mediterranean European theology, the worship that we have is that, and that Christianity remains an isolated religious, as a religious tradition in this great environment. Precisely because we could not accept the fact that there could be anything good in these religious traditions or the cultures that have come out of it. Today we have, after the independence time, there are Asian theologians who are working, an enormous amount of Asian theology that are developed in all parts of Asia, but they are at the margins of the churches in Asia. And they are a postscript in the Christian theology in the West. Always at the end there's a chapter on third world theology or nation theology or something, but the theological tradition never changed because of the impact it had in Asia and in Africa. And this is one of the biggest challenges that we face in global Christianity. Christianity can never be the same again because it went into Asia. Because it was never same again. It was never the same again because it went into the Greco-Roman world. Why hasn't happened? Because of the power imbalance. And today it needs to be redone. And if we redo that, it is not for a theology in Asia to be admired by here, but it has to be about the Christian theology. How it can change because it has come into contact with these philosophical, religious and cultural traditions of the other parts of the world. Therefore, there's an unfinished agenda in the theological world. That's the first problem we face in global Christianity. Second issue is missiology. Already ran out?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. The second issue is missiology. In 1910 at Edinburgh, there was a World Mission Conference called by a lay Methodist layman here, John R. Mott. And the slogan was evangelization of the world in this generation. All the mission societies and missionary agencies came and they wanted to evangelize the world in that generation. That means to convert China, India and the whole of Asia into the Christian faith. Millions of dollars, thousands of lives of missionaries, many institutions, etc. were poured into Asia, and I'm leaving Africa for the moment, and because of my experience in Asia, was poured into to make Asia Christian. Today, out of 1 billion people, not even 2% of India is Christian. And out of more than 1 billion people in China, not even 5% is a contested figure of Christians. Not even 1% of Thailand, not even 0.1% of Japan. Asia was never evangelized. There are two questions that we are not faced. Missionary society are not faced. What happens if people of other religious traditions hear the gospel and do not accept it? Do not become part of the Christian church. What do we do with that reality theologically? We have never answered that question. Secondly, and this is a question I have raised for a long time and I have been in a lot of trouble, was there a basic severe misunderstanding in missiology when mission was directed against other religious traditions? I do not think that Christian mission was ever intended to make Muslims and Hindus and Christians and those who believe in God to become Christians. Mission directed as other religious tradition was a misguided mission. Mission is about healing, bringing about wholeness into the lives of people, and it is not to call people who believe to believe in another way. Now this is a subject on which I need to speak 1 hour if everyone is please. But if this is misguided, what should be mission today? Therefore, what is mission? Why are we in mission? And what do we hope to achieve in mission is a major question. But this is a question that has never been addressed in the mission thinking of our time. And any global Christianity has to completely rethink mission and have to have entirely different basis on what it means to be in mission with other. Mission directed towards other religious traditions is not intended by Jesus, and it is a misguided understanding of what mission is all about. It is about people, their healing, their progress. Last one. Ecumenism. We have thought of ecumenism as trying to bring the churches together, bring about the unity of the churches. The word oikumene in Greek means the whole inhabited earth. The idea was to bring together unity of the church. So if you want to have ecumenism in Asia, is it to bring about the 2% of Christians? If it is about the unity of humankind, if it will bring about wholeness in their life, peace and justice, it has to be about all the people who are living in a particular area. The ecumenism as we have known it is finished. Both it has to be an inner circle, and outside there has to be what I call a wider ecumenism, or the ecumenism of religious traditions. The humanity today needs an entirely new understanding of ecumenism. Wilfred Cantwell Smith long ago said, the word ecumenism had been hijacked by the Christians to talk about the internal life of the church. Ecumenism is about humankind and about their unity, and that is what we must seek. If that is ecumenism, global Christianity need to look at the entirely different basis to belong. Thank you.